Good afternoon. Welcome to Good Afternoon Ghana live on Metro TV. We are on channel 227 and also on Facebook and on Twitter. My name is Winston Taki, sitting in for your regular host, Annie Ifua Ampefo. This afternoon is a rainy day wherever you are. I suggest you drive safely and make sure that you find yourself at a proper location in order to avoid any unforeseen accident on the roads. It's a very slippery road at this moment. So drive safely wherever you are. Just make sure you are safe. This afternoon, we're going to be touching on a very critical topic that has to do with petroleum pricing. The question we are asking this afternoon is, are we to expect an increment in price come next week? Hopefully, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union have hinted that they are doing some price adjustment with reference to how much you pay. Hopefully next week when you sit in the trotro, board a taxi, order your Uber, certainly you're going to see some price reflection. Definitely it's going to be upwards. These and more questions will be asking the MPA and also the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers with regards to what element goes into pricing of petrol as well as its ripple effect on transport and other sectors. These and more coming out shortly after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Ghana live on Metro TV. You can send your comments and also comment on our Facebook page at Metro TVGH, and also you can tweet at us at Metro TVGH on Twitter. We will also be responding to comments live here in the studio. So you're watching us tonight. This afternoon, we're touching on the prices adjustment with regards to transport fares coming off, hopefully by the 13th of May. This is the hint, according to the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, that the GPRTU. We'll be also speaking to the public relation officer and get more gist from him. And also, we'll have the in-studio, possibly the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, to give us insights into the prices of petrol at the pump. Already hint has given information from the MPA suggests that crude oil prices are going high and will likely be reflecting soon at the pumps. But before then, let's look at some of the comments that last week the President of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, spoke with regards to removal of taxes or levies on fuel. He says, should that be possible, the nation is likely to lose about $4 billion, and that is going to really affect the economy strongly. So let's take a look at that particular video, and we'll come back for more.
On the vexed matter of petroleum price increases, the suggestion has been made, which has also been repeated by the Secretary General, is at this moment not sustainable. Removing taxes on petroleum products will reduce government revenues by some 4 billion cedis. At this time, when we're determined to expand government revenues in order to increase our capacity to finance our own development, can we afford to reduce government revenues by 4 billion cedis? Government is currently confronted by very tight financing conditions in the wake of inadequate domestic revenue mobilization. Indeed, some of the revenues from these same taxes on petroleum products is what is used to pay some of the salaries of some of the 700,000 public sectors on government payroll. We are addressing the issue of fuel price increases by implementing measures that are succeeding in stabilizing the exchange rate, a key determinant of fuel prices. Government is also working hard to ensure reliable supply and availability of petroleum products, thereby preventing shortages, a phenomenon which is being experienced in some other neighboring countries. By the same token, we're keeping the lights on in Ghana, despite all the difficulties our economy is going through. We should bear in mind that even though we are a modest producer of crude oil, with a current output of 148,000 barrels per day, we are still a net importer of petroleum products. We therefore continue to be vulnerable to the price volatilities of the world market for petroleum products. On the vexed matter of petroleum price increases, the suggestion has been made, which has also been repeated by the Secretary General, is at this moment not sustainable. Removing taxes on petroleum products will reduce government revenues by some 4 billion cedis. At this time, when we're determined to expand government revenues in order to increase our capacity to finance our own development, can we afford to reduce government revenues by 4 billion cedis? Government is currently confronted by very tight financing conditions in the wake of inadequate domestic revenue mobilization. Indeed, some of the revenues from these same taxes on petroleum products is what is used to pay some of the salaries of some of the 700,000 public sectors on government payroll. We are addressing the issue of fuel price increases by implementing measures that are succeeding in stabilizing the exchange rate, a key determinant of fuel prices. Government is also working hard to ensure reliable supply and availability of petroleum products, thereby preventing shortages, a phenomenon which is being experienced in some other neighboring countries. By the same token, we're keeping the lights on in Ghana, despite all the difficulties our economy is going through. We should bear in mind that even though we are a modest producer of crude oil, with a current output of 148,000 barrels per day, we are still a net importer of petroleum products. We therefore continue to be vulnerable to the price volatilities of the world market for petroleum products.
So that was the president speaking with regards to the tax removal on petroleum products. And he made some key points there. He made mention of the fact that the country is currently undergoing challenges in regards to domestic revenue mobilization, and also the amount of money that goes into payment of public sector wages and salaries, possibly over 700,000 Ghanaian public sector workers. But let's look at the tax component currently on petrol products. We have the energy debt recovery levy, which currently is at 49 pesos. Road fund levy is 48 pesos. Energy fund levy currently on the fuel prices is 1 pesos. We have price stabilization recovery levy of 14 pesos. Later on, it was then at 18 pesos, but was brought down when complaint was made with regards to adjusting the fuel prices. We have sanitation and pollution levy, 10 pesos. Energy sector recovery levy, 20 pesos. Special petroleum tax, 46 pesos. Primary distribution margin of 11 pesos. The rest are boss margin of 9 pesos, as well as fuel marking margin, which is 5 pesos. A total of 289 pesos is what is taxed on every fuel product we buy. So that is what you see on your screen currently. But let's move to Dr. Patrick Esumenu, the senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, to give us more insight with regards to some of the statements made by the president. Also, looking at the economic outlook as a country, will we be able to sustain with regards to how much we can lose? Should we take the taxes off, or how much we can sustain? Should we still keep it? And for how long can this work for us as a country? Good afternoon and welcome to Good Afternoon Indeed.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Great. You've listened to what the president said, that currently should these taxes, which is approximately 289 pesos, be removed, the nation is likely to lose 4 billion Ghana cedis. And also, he made mention of the tight financing structure which the current nation is currently facing. What do you make of it?
Well, actually, I think if you look at the 2022 budget as presented, the projected amount to be collected from petroleum tax was more than 5 billion. So that's what the president is saying is probably even much lower than what we actually projected, unless there's been a revision. But I think it's a difficult period for the government because on one hand, obviously, fuel prices have been going up and it's beginning to bite the pocket of ordinary Ghanaians. But at the same time, the government is also in a situation where they need to mobilize as much revenue as it can. So it's a very difficult balance. I think what hasn't helped is the fact that some of the revenue measures that were put in the original budget have taken long to come into stream. I think even what we plan to do with the rollback of the benchmark values, at the moment, we are not fully implementing that. And then the fact that the e-levy also delayed. That's not to say I'm in support of the e-levy, but in terms of what government planned to collect, there was a delay. So overall, it appears that the government feels that where we want to put the balance is to fix its finances and not at this point put more measures to pushing the ordinary Ghanaians.
There is some school of thoughts that have attributed this structure of just taxing petroleum product as a low-hanging fruit that is easy. Should we not in a kind of way broaden the tax that in reference to taxing other industries instead of just bringing it just on petroleum sector, which broadly affects every sector?
I think from an economic point of view, you understand why the government wants to tax petroleum. I think every time, if you notice, every time we need new revenue, one of the first things that we impose taxes on usually is going to be petroleum and imports, because in economics, we say that the demand is price inelastic. So when you impose the tax and the price goes up, people still don't have many options. So they have to keep buying. So all of that explains why. So it means that it's easier for government to raise revenue from them. But I think there's a broader recognition by the government that we cannot continue to do that. We need to broaden the tax base because at this point, we need more revenue, but we can't even dare think about imposing more petroleum taxes because the taxes are a lot already. So you have to say in the last few years, the government has been trying, but you have to understand there are also other low-hanging fruit that the government hasn't plugged. There's a lot of discussion about the taxes, which has been in our books for long. The finance minister has spoken about it for a long time, but nothing has been done. We are told that by this time, this year there are going to be reforms that will allow us to collect more property taxes. So I hope that really happens. And then there's what has been in the news persistently is the issue about the exemptions we give to people who should be paying taxes. I think that is a big problem. The president has spoken about it. The finance minister has put it in the budget several times. The IMF, we spoke about it during the IMF program. The World Bank has spoken about it. So you still struggle to understand why we haven't done all of those. If we had done them, maybe it will give the government a little bit more room to remove some of the taxes on petroleum.
The central bank has given data with regards to Ghana's current debt-GDP ratio, which is at 81.1%, and also with the expenditure cases that we consistently have seen that is quite uncontrollable. And just as you made mention, we have a current hardship in the economy. How do we structure, or let's say come out of this in order to live in, or let's say lighten the living condition of the ordinary Ghanaian?
So first of all, I think regard to the debt to GDP ratio, I think because the GDP for the last quarter and the overall GDP growth for 2021 was higher than we projected, the debt to GDP ratio has now fallen below 80%. So I think we should clarify that.
All right.
But it's a tricky thing. I think at the moment, yes, our debt situation is going up. The main problem is that when we collect taxes, a lot of it is going to pay interest or to pay government workers. So at the same time, we've seen that our roads are not good. Everybody is complaining about their road. And the other things that public infrastructure that we haven't invested so much in the last few years. So the question is, where is the space for government to commit more to developmental projects? So there are two things. Either we continue to borrow or we pay more taxes. I think the challenge the government has had over the years is that instead of broadening the base so that we bring in the informal sector in a sustainable way to contribute to the tax bracket, we haven't really done that. And in a difficult time like we are, where at the same time government needs revenue, but at the same time he cannot keep imposing new taxes. So we are in a bit of a difficulty. And then now, over the last couple of years, we've been relying a lot on doing Eurobond, borrowing from the international market. Now it is close to us. So, all of these have culminated in making sure that at the moment the government's hands look a little bit tied.
But will you attribute that to lack of foresight? Because we as a nation were supposed to foresee, economic-wise, you can foresee what you have in regards to as a nation and also project towards the coming future as in should any eminent things happen, because the rating agencies warned us that this was likely to happen like 2 years ago. Last year, the warnings kept being given, but yet still the ratings has come to prove to us that indeed we have a long way to go.
I won't say it's a lack of foresight. I mean, you get the sense that this discussion has always been had. So in essence, the government and its agencies, they knew that this problem is there. It appears that they lack a political will, or it appears that they are too eager to please some sections of or some interest groups. So because of that, when they should be taking the action, they seem to be dilly-dallying. I think the benchmark value thing is an example, right? I think they meant that at this point we need a revenue and we're going to roll it back. But because Guta is a very powerful political voice, and then they became very resistant, the government seemed to dilly-dally and doesn't seem willing to go through. So all the discussions has been there. I think it's fair to say that every member of the economic management team and the finance team of this government, they know what we have to do to broaden the tax base. So I don't think it's a lack of knowledge in terms of lack of foresight. It appears that they just don't have the political will to carry through and do what they have to do.
All right, Dr. Patrick, I'll come back to you shortly. Please stay on whilst we speak to the Industrial Relations Officer of GPRTU, Alhaji Abbas Ibrahim Moro. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Martha.
Great. We have hints that you have planned to increase transport fares come 13th of May by 30%. How true is that? And can you give us reasons why this is meant to happen?
Yes. One of the media fixed the date for we having fixed 13th for effective date. We came up, we said yes, we are putting our resources to come up with new upward adjustments in lorry fares. What we said was, yes, the last arrangement we made up to today, things have changed. We have to revisit the market, look at the prices of spare parts, which are some of the components that we use in running transport, lubricants as well, alongside over 40% increment in fuel prices. So definitely, God willing, next week we are going to come out with an upward adjustment, but we did not mention the 13th as somebody suggested to us. We never mentioned on the 13th. But what we said was definitely, God willing, next week we are going to come up with an upward adjustment in lorry fare.
You made mention of spare parts and also what other reasons?
Lubricants, which are part of the components we use in running transport. So we want to look at the current prices. If it is significant, that will take some of the percentage from there. Why not? Why not?
Let me understand. What goes into your pricing in regards to transportation?
Yes. We look at the fuel prices. Mm-hmm. We look at the spare parts, lubricants. Then we make this comparative. Look at the percentages. then we come up with a reasonable percentage of which we've been using. This is how we've been going about it.
Okay. So what percentage, likely percentage, should we be looking forward to come next week?
Well, if you ask my view, we haven't finally made to decide, but I don't think it will be less than 20%.
That's huge.
much.
That's still
If
huge.
you ask my view, we haven't finally settled.
But less than 20% is ranging between 18 and 19%.
No. If you look at the current situation, that wouldn't be possible. That wouldn't be possible. But all the same, let's wait till next week when we shall definitely meet and finally decide. That is where I will come out positively with whatever decision we've taken.
Okay. So which other unions are siding with you regards to the price change? Is it just you or just the private transport unions?
Come again.
Is it just the private transport unions or any other the other unions?
Currently, we have a coalition.
Yeah.
So although undisputedly, we are the leading private transport operators in the country, but we don't do it in isolation. We include other transporters as well.
Is that are you attributing your reasons to the president's statement that it's because the taxes cannot be removed, therefore they are maintaining the prices, or is that some of the reasons leading to you deciding on increasing yours as well?
My brother, that statement is just unfortunate because about 12 taxes margins and service on the web, we created it in this country. It isn't one of the OPEC crises. So for a whole president, even some have overstayed its purpose of introduction. So for our whole president to say to take some of the taxes off, is he saying that it is only the drivers who are supposed to be paying huge taxes to take care of the country? The answer is no. We know of some businesses which are operating without paying taxes. So we said it before that the government should look at all these aspects, cast the net wide, and capture some of these people so that they will all be paying something small. At the end of the day, we will get something reasonable to run the country. And if on fuel alone, about 12 taxes, levies, and margins, and for the president to say it won't be possible to take some off, I would say it's unfortunate.
I understand your demands are quite critical, possibly necessary for your outfit, but has there been a point where you've considered to say, we understand that this is what we need, but looking at the current economic challenges and also impact on the cost of living of an ordinary Ghanaian, we will give ourselves some time. Is that an option on the table now? Would that be an option? Mr. Bass? Okay, we'll get Mr. Abag back shortly, but we're still discussing a very serious issue that certainly will have impact on your life, your finances, your expenditure, your business, and also the cost of living of every individual in this country. That's do it for, and also the taxation. Whether are we to expect more? And according to what Mr. Abbas has made us know, certainly there's going to be a less than 20% price adjustment come next week. We'll be looking forward to that and bringing you more assessment to that. But let's come in studio. I have joining me here in the studio the head of research and training at the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana. Good afternoon. Welcome, Ben.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Benjamin Isian. Great. This week, by the way, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you too?
By the grace of God. This week, I had a conversation with your boss, Mr. Amwa, and he made mention of the fact that I just asked the statement made by the president that we are certainly going to lose more even if we keep the taxes. He didn't go into detail, but can you explain to us whether you also side with that point of view or you had a different point based on your research?
Okay, I think before I comment on what the president said, I must state categorically that when you are a leader of a state and you get the opportunity to talk to your citizens,
Okay.
I think the opportunity must be backed with law and must come from law. We are saying this because when the president came out to say that petroleum taxes were used to pay for salaries or compensation of workers, I was marveled, and the whole of COPEC was marveled, and then we came into conclusion that the president spoke out of law because any of the taxes introduced on the build-up were brought in by law, and they were brought in for specific purposes and intentions, and one of them is not paying for the salaries of workers. And now, if my boss said, and that has been the argument of COPEC, if not removing the taxes is also going to cost the government in terms of revenue mobilization. Why are we saying this? Now, because fuel prices are increasing, the cost of production or cost of operation, for example, Metro TV, your cost of production has gone up because of fuel price increment. And this also affects your profitability. And you know, at the end of the year, companies are supposed to pay corporate taxes of maybe 25% of profit. So if cost of operations or cost of production or any particular operations you engage in as an entity goes up, it means that your profit is also going to be affected. Now, if profit is affected, it also means that the revenue government needs from these companies, government may not get it. That is one side of it. Now, when also cost of fuel increases, it also means that most organizations and entities will lay off workers. And I think we got that beginning this year when some mining companies in Western Ashanti region and then Ahafo region laid off workers because of the cost of gas oil continuously increasing. Now, these workers are persons who pay direct taxes to government. So if you are laid off, your Senate will not go. Also, your taxes in the form of pay as you earn, or what normally they say pay, that also will not go to government. So government is also going to lose in that regard too. So in conclusion, both at the firm side and the household side or at the worker side, government is going to lose certain revenues that they are going to expect. So if my boss told you that, yes, price of fuel, if government doesn't take the taxes off, government is going to lose, that's the reality, and government is losing it.
You know, the MPA released its on the 5th May, the pricing window. And out of that, we saw crude oil having a price change of 4.6%, and also petrol having a price change of 7.71%, as well as the other, especially diesel. There is this assertion that, according to MPA, Abbas Tasinta, who is the head of pricing at MPA, that there is certainly a short supply of diesel on the market. How is that certainly going to impact the industry, basically? Because we know people now use more diesel cars and stuff, but what is the likely impact?
Yes, I think aside many vehicle owners using gas oil or diesel for transportation or communication, there are also the thought and argument that if you go to Western Europe, and especially most part of the Western world, most of the vehicles that transport goods, if I say goods here means commodities, consumables, these vehicles use diesel. And also means that the demand for diesel on the international market far outweighs the demand for petrol. So if you take the density differentials of these products, the consumption of diesel also is higher than the consumption of petrol on the international market. And that is why currently diesel is going for around 11 Ghana to 30 pesos, while petrol is still around 9 Ghana to 35 pesos. So the demand for petrol far outweighs and creating certain shortages both globally and locally. I think Ghana, we experienced a bit shortage maybe in the last 5 days or so because of what we call conventional ball mooring, which we use to dog or log cargoes on the shore, right? It had a challenge. And they were maintaining it. And because of that, most of the cargoes that brought in diesel were not able to discharge for our consumption locally. I think that has been maintained. It has been repaired. However, the reason why diesel is far costly is because diesel is more consumed and more demanded than petrol. That is one. Now, two also is that because of the conflict in Eastern Europe, that is the Russian-Ukraine conflict, there's this hike in inflation across the globe. So when inflation hikes in certain jurisdictions, it also means that wages will go higher. So when wages are going higher at the factories where they refine these products. And these factories must also add these increments in wages on the factory price of the refined products. That is two. Now, the third one is that the cost of spare parts too is also increasing. Russia is a country that also maybe manufactures some of these spare parts, but because of the sanctions, there are limited spare parts in Europe and other jurisdictions. So because of that too, it also affects the prices of diesel and then petrol internationally. So these are the three factors. But the main factor, the main reason why diesel costs more than petrol is because the demand of diesel far outweighs and increasing more than petrol.
How about the cost of transportation or importation? Could that also be counted as an element?
Yeah, it can locally. If you are talking of the local factor, apart from the conventional boil model that had a challenge, cost of importation has also increased because of certain risk factors and inflation, as I mentioned, and other factors, and also maybe the U.S. government also appreciating its interest rate by about 0.5 percentage points. It also means that cutting products from Europe or US to Ghana will cost more than previously, right? And this also adds up to the cost of the BDCs, what normally we call the supply premium of the BDCs, which includes their cost recovery and the profit margins of these BDCs. And when that also translates into the value chain. So whenever the price of finished product increases by these BDCs, it means that the end user also have to pay more. And that is why diesel is quite costly.
You made mention of the adjustment of the U.S. Interest rate, but I think it was by 1% or so. Yeah. And we, as a country, the president made mention of the current stability of the cedi against the global major currencies, and also some factors that possibly they've put in place where we've seen for about 2 weeks now, we've seen some stability in the market. Is there a shake with regards to this announcement? Because we know the stock market and other factors or the other markets are shifted or shaken from every announcement from the U.S.
I think when the U.S. reserve, which is the world's reserve, like normally I term it as the world reserve because the U.S. dollar is the dominant currency across the globe. So whenever they hike their interest, it appreciates their dollar against major trading currencies, including that of our cedi here. So if the central bank, that is the Bank of Ghana, doesn't put certain interventions, or the Ministry of Finance doesn't coordinate and collaborate with the Bank of Ghana to put up certain interventions, I think that in the coming days, the dollar will start appreciating against the cedi. And I think I even saw it yesterday somewhere on the news that it has started appreciating against the cedi, but maybe it is insignificant and quite minimal compared to what we experienced in the earlier month of this year. So I think we need to put certain resilient measures that will stabilize our cedi against the dollar. If you don't put them currently or immediately, it means that in the coming days, the dollar will appreciate or the cedi will depreciate against the dollar, and then the price of petroleum products will keep on increasing because exchange rate is one critical factor we use in computing price of petroleum product locally.
Okay, we have Benjamin Isian, the head of research and training at COPEC, giving us insights in petroleum price. And if you have Dr. Patrick Esumenin also on Zoom, with a senior lecturer at University of Ghana Business School. Dr. Patrick, are you there, please? Hello, Dr. Patrick.
Yes, I'm here.
Good. We are still touching on the petroleum price, and it appears that the interest rate adjustment at the U.S. has had impact on our current cedi. How do we, in a way, provide a shock absorber, or let's say a hedge, in regards to having a stable currency in the country? Do you have any insight to that effect?
Well, the solution to the cedi's problem, I think it's a long-term solution. I think all these factors about, bringing in Eurobond, all of those, are short-term solutions. They are not the long-term solution. The long-term solution is to change the structure of the economy and to change the level of import and export. So, and if you look at how the cedi moves on a typical day, in a typical year, when we think that the cedi has done well, you still see about 5% depreciation. That will be explained by the fact that what is happening to our export and what is happening to our import. Now, so when we do the cocoa loan, when we do the Eurobond, when we get to a period where foreign companies are expatriating their profit, all of that will explain some short-term movement, some seasonal movement. But if ultimately we don't broaden our export base, and then we don't cut our importing, we don't stop importing some of the things that we can produce locally, then ultimately the cedi depreciation will always depreciate. If you look over the long term, the cedi always depreciate. And that's because fundamentally, we import way more than we export. And as long as that happens, nothing will change. So we talk about, it's very strange that a country with the level of agricultural endowment we have will be using hard currency to be importing rice and grain and other grains when we have fertile land to produce them. And so I think that, on paper, doing things like the planting for food and jobs and the one district, one factory should have helped. But unfortunately, we haven't seen the progress that you would expect to see after 5 years of implementation. So I think that's where it is. We have to address the challenges with those programs that have prevented us from seeing a fundamental shift in the structure of our economy and consequently the level of our import and export.
Dr. Patrick Esubeni, you made mention that we should stop importation. Strategically, you and I could attest that there are some particular products that domestic mobilization of them will quite be difficult. You made mention of rice. There are also other sub-school of thought that we cannot meet the increasing demand and also the pricing of some of these local products. What do you say to that?
So the idea is not to stop imports. And even if we take rice, we cannot get up one day and say we are going to stop rice imports. If you do that, there will be a huge price increase and that will cause an uproar. So what you do is that you have a long-term strategy. And then you systematically make investment to ensure that in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, every year you are increasing your level of production to the extent that you're able to reduce your import. So that's how you do. Not that you wake up one day and say you are not going to import rice. If you do that, then the price will just go out of control. And that's the thing. So we have to look at our import bill and look at some of the things that we know that if we did a right level of investment in 3-4 years' time, you could cut our import. That's the approach. Not that you get up one day and say you are going to stop importing. Look, there are some things that we will just have to import. I mean, if you take cars, even though we started assembling some cars, we still have to import cars because the quantity of cars that we are assembling is way below the domestic demand. Then there are some things like medicines. Some medicines we can produce locally, but there are some components that we definitely need. Some machinery, some inputs that we obviously have to import. But the problem is where we are also spending the currency to import the things that we really shouldn't importing.
All right. Dr. Patrick Esumeni, we'll be coming back to you shortly. Stay tuned as we go for a break. When we come back, there's more discussion here on Good Afternoon Ghana. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Ghana here on Metro TV. We are also streaming live on Facebook and also on our Twitter handles at metrotvgh.com. My name is Winston Taki, sitting in for a regular host and the F4 Amplify. And this day we've been discussing the fuel price increment, the likelihood of it, which the Industrial Relations Officer of GPRTU made mention that we are likely to, from next week, experience a less than 20%. I really asked him whether is it 18, 19. He said it's a less. So let's see which percentage, how much will be paying come next week, and that will certainly affect everything from transport fares, from cost of production, from even how much money you can keep or spend per day. This is all we've taken into consideration. I have also in studio Benjamin Isian, who is the head of price and research at COPEC, and we were joined on Zoom also by Dr. Patrick Isumini, the senior lecturer at University of Ghana Business School. So let me come back to Benjamin Isian right here in the studio. Earlier, you stated categorically that indeed there are some factors that went into pricing of fuel on the market currently. But your boss says something. But before I even come to that, what do you say about controlling or movement of fuel in Ghana? Because the MPA made mention of the fact that there are structures that you put in place that currently is giving them access or control in regards to where the fuels go and also the pricing in the market. Nothing can go above what they project in every pricing we do.
Yeah, I think they are right in saying that. But normally, we at COPEC believe that there's always a difference between principles or regulation and then practice. Sometimes you may have the regulation, but the practice is quite difficult to comply with. For example, we're comparing data from Ghana Standard Authority. They also do monitoring of fuel stations, and then that of MPA. When you compare these two state agencies, their data, you realize that the data of Ghana Standard Authority has some retail outlets, or let me say some OMCs across the country that I don't think MPA knows of.
Okay.
For example, in the northern region, we observed that there was one Yahaya retail outlet, and this particular retail outlet was supervised or monitored by the GSA. So MPA can come out to say that, yes, they have put certain interventions or measures in place to track or monitor the products, but it cannot be entirely efficient. At least there will be certain kind of inefficiencies in it. For example, last year they even came out to say that there was about 2% adulteration in the market. Adulteration means that people mixing certain products with other products to sell to us. So as a regulator, they also know their inefficiencies in the system. Now, aside that too, apart from tracking in-house product or in-country products, there are certain products too that come out of the country into our market without knowledge of, especially at the borders. Because our prices are quite expensive, higher compared to our neighbors in Togo, our neighbors in Cote d'Ivoire, our neighbors in Burkina Faso, and even far higher compared to our neighbors extreme somewhere in Nigeria, there are people, right, that smuggle in these products into this particular economy through our borders. MPA may say that they have certain structures to monitor, but they cannot monitor all. And these are revenue losses to the state, because at these borders, people who buy these products will not pay the taxes we are paying. So government is losing in that regard too. So that is why we at COPEC, apart from government losing, Winston, you see, when you take price increment, it affects everybody and leading to poverty in Ghana. Maybe the GSS or Ghana Statistical Service has not come out with certain data on the impact of fuel prices on poverty, poverty alleviation or reduction or whatever. But if they had actually done a research on that, the impact of fuel price hikes on households is only one thing, leading to poverty and worsening the situation of households. And I'll give you an example. For example, last year, you had 10 Ghana cedis that could buy maybe 2 liters. Your salary is constant. Imagine your salary is maybe 20 Ghana cedis. 5 Ghana cedis for household consumption and 5 Ghana cedis for savings. 10 Ghana cedis for fuel. As we're speaking today, the fuel is now 20 Ghana cedis and the salary is still constant. It means that you need the fuel to power your vehicle because you need it to go to work. It means that your savings has been taken off even your consumption, the 5% for household consumption has also been withdrawn to buy fuel. So what happens? Your poverty level at the household is increasing. That is one. If you take at the firm side, as I said earlier, now because firms, and these are our experiences in even Europe, as I'm speaking, people are even projecting and estimating that Europe may go, especially Germany, may go into recession. And why are they projecting that Germany may go into recession? They are saying that because the cost of fuel is affecting their production, right? So, cost of fuel, if as a country we want to manage our poverty well, we want to manage employment creation well, I think indirect taxation on fuel should be something we must critically look at.
You know, Ben, let me come in. For quite some time now, there's this global outlook in regards to Germany and some European countries where they are now moving away from industrial-driven to more human-driven labor, that they're coming back to labor because of what you just said. Because initially, I was wondering why the increasing demand from Germany, Canada, and most of these countries for labor and expertise. What do you say to that?
I think the Western world has realized that, unlike Japan, they have realized that the more we go into robotics or AI in terms of using them as labor, is also going to create a situation where many people, there will be unemployment rate. You know, those countries, they measure their full employment by 7% or low. For example, in Europe, in Germany, for example, if unemployment rate is 5% or below,
yes,
they call it full employment.
Okay.
Right? So when they realized that their unemployment situation was going above 5, they said no. Instead of resorting to AI and robotics like what Japan is doing, we have the person. So let's use the persons.
Okay. You know, Kobe, let's stay on this. Finally, before we go, what do you say about the price? And are we to experience fuel prices coming for? What is your projection? The transport operator said less than 20%. What do you say as COPEC as an institution?
But I think in speaking to the transport operators, industrial relation Bauer, Abbas. When Abbas says less than 20%, it could be even 1% because 20% is the maximum. So less than could be 1%. So that the commuters locally could benefit because 1% increment. But you see, Winston, you mentioned our projections in the future. In wrapping up, COPEC is saying that this is just the beginning. Prices of petroleum products are going to increase in the second window of May, the first window of June, the second window of June, the first window of July. So Ghanaians should expect that if the government doesn't put certain interventions in place, prices of diesel especially could reach 13 before this year ends.
13% before the end of the year.
13 Ghana cedis per liter.
13 Ghana cedis per liter.
Before this year ends.
That's serious there. But let's take the final words from Dr. Patrick Isumini. Doctor, if you're still there.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, sir. Please, your last words with regards to the fuel price and then also its impact on us as an industry.
Yeah, I think in the last few weeks, we've seen some stability. I mean, the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've seen some stability, and I think that's helpful. If, as COPEC is predicting, if the prices keep, going up, then the government will be forced really into thinking carefully about what they have to do, because we can't allow the prices to keep going up the way we saw in February and in March. So I think at the moment it appears that the city has stabilized a little bit. So it's not clear to me why we are expecting to see more increases. But if there are more increases, then obviously the government has to think hard about some of the taxes. Even though, as you just showed at the beginning of the show, we see that the tax component is really not that much. I mean, overall, I think the total, if you buy a petrol, the total tax on a liter is still less than 3 cedis. So even if you remove the 3 cedis, it's still not much. But I mean, it will, in some ways it will help. It will help pushing the consumer some way, because we also see that public sector wages have not been going up as much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick Isumini. Dr. Patrick Isumini is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, and also Benjamin Isia is the head of research and training at COPEC, and also I was joined online on phone by Alhaji Abbas Ibrahim Moro of the GPRTU. He's the Industrial Relations Officer. My name is Winston Taki. I came your way this afternoon right here in the studio of Metro TV. We have more programs for you. Stay tuned after this.